Coming up on Golf Central, Billy Hurley III finally breaks through on the PGA Tour. We hear Billy's emotional story. Lydia Ko has done it again. The 19-year-old wins for the 13th time on the LPGA Tour. The big boys return to action at the WGC Bridgestone. Jason Day, Jordan Spieth, Dustin Johnson, and more, all in Akron for the WGC event. But many of the top-rated Europeans choosing the 100th French Open this week. All that and more next on Golf Central.
Golf Central. Brought to you by Titleist.
Taking a look at our top stories today, the PGA Tour has announced its wraparound schedule for the 2016-2017 season. There are 47 events on the schedule, with the Safeway Open, formerly the Fries.com, kicking off this October in Napa, California. There will be no PGA Tour event at Doral for the first time since 1961. The WGC Mexico Championship will be played in Mexico City the first weekend of March. And the PGA Championship returns to its familiar spot on the calendar the second week of August, with Quail Hollow Golf Club in Charlotte hosting its first major. And with that, we welcome you into Golf Central. Ryan Burr along with Trip Eisenhower, our insider Tim Rosafort. And the big event this week, of course, is in Akron, the WGC Bridgestone. Let's take a look at the WGC events for next season. It will once again begin in Shanghai, China in late October. From there in March, no Doral. Instead, it is off to Mexico City at a course to be determined for a second consecutive year. Also in March, it will be the WGC Dell Match Play once again in Austin, Texas. And 1 year from now, we'll wrap up the WGC season with the Bridgestone Invitational, as always, in Akron, Ohio. So obviously, guys, a pretty big change in the middle of the Florida swing. Doral has hosted a tour event every year since 1961, a string that will end in 2017. The event, a new sponsor and a new city, a new country for that matter, moving to Mexico. Trip, start with you. The effect in your mind this will have on the Florida swing.
Well, it's going to definitely affect a little bit because, you know, when you're right there in Florida and you can stay there and play. And Doral, of course, even though through the changes, the players always, you know, like going to Doral and being challenged, and they certainly were. But the other thing, too, is remember, Tim, the WGCs were pretty much about being around the world and not just being in the United States. But when the PGA Tour did that, well, you know, a lot of the players didn't make the travel. So this is not a long travel to get to Mexico City. And the PGA Tour already plays a regular season event there at Mayakoba. The Web.com Tour plays there. So this is unusual to not be at Doral, but not unusual to play in Mexico City.
It's going to be an easy trip, especially if you're around the Honda Classic, because you can get on a chartered plane that the Tour is going to have leaving Palm Beach and flying right into Mexico. It doesn't seem right, does it, that Doral doesn't have a tournament? But in many regards, right, it could be much better. Talked to Hollis Kavner, the man who put the tournament, this sponsorship together, this whole deal together. Hollis put together Valspar and resurrected that golf tournament. Just back from a site visit, and says everybody's going to be blown away by what they see down there. The
Still no golf course yet. What are you looking at?
Well, I'm going to get there in a second here, but you know, Ricardo Salinas and Grupo Salinas family, they want to make it the best of the best. Chapultepec, while not official yet, Ryan, it is basically a matter of just signing the papers. The club has it. Everything's been agreed to. Ricardo Salinas wants to turn it into much more than a golf tournament, sort of a golf culturalization for his country, showing the culture of Mexico as being different than what many people think about it. And so as a byproduct of that, based on the golf course and Kavner giving it A+ ratings, all the infrastructure's there, the transportation's locked down already, the hotels are close enough to the golf course where it shouldn't be a problem. Everybody down there and everybody who has visited from the tour extremely high on this move to Mexico.
It sounds like everything is a go for the WGC. Let's take a look at the 2017 calendar, and of course we will start in Hawaii. Maui is once again the launch spot with the Tournament of Champions in Kapalua, the event yet to name a title sponsor. The tour will then move to Honolulu, where they have played a PGA Tour event every year since 1965. From Hawaii, it is off to the West Coast swing. Career Builder Challenge is where we start. From there, it's off to the Farmers Insurance Open. Waste Management Phoenix Open keeping its spot in the first week of February. Off to the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. And then the big change on the West Coast, Riviera will have a new sponsor for 26-2017. Hyundai will sponsor the Genesis Open at the end of February, once again at Riviera. From the West Coast swing, it is to the Florida swing, where now just 3 events remain. As the Roseman indicated, the Honda Classic will be well represented with the quick flight from Palm Beach all the way to Mexico for the WGC event. Then it's back to Florida for the Valspar Championship. And then the great Arnold Palmer Invitational March 16th through the 19th in 2017. You look at the Florida swing, now down to 3 events. You talked about the Honda. You don't think that will be impacted at all?
No, I don't. I mean, what they've done there, Ken Kennerly and the Honda Classic, they have made that a premier tournament on the PGA Tour. You know, it's like years ago in the 80s and 90s, it was like Doral was the premier tournament at Florida. Well, now it's become the Honda Classic. Why? Because the golf course is really a challenging golf course, but a fair golf course. I think the tournaments that could be affected would be the Arnold Palmer Invitational and Valspar, because typically players are going to play 2 events right around the WGC events, but Honda is pretty much a star on everyone's schedule, at least as far as the top players go.
Yeah, Arnold got put in a bad spot with his tournament going up that close to the match play, but it's still the Bay Hill Arnold Palmer Invitational, and we love it and we support it, and so do players. So I don't expect much of a downturn there. And as I said about Valspar, that event is really growing in stature. You know for yourself, it's a great golf course down at Innisbrook, and players just sign up for that one just to play the golf course.
You know, Tampa and Orlando sandwiched between Mexico and Austin in the WGC event, so it will be interesting for sure. The major championship season has a look like this. Of course, the Masters will get us all started April 6th to the 9th at Augusta National. From the Masters, it is off to the U.S. Open, 117th version at Erin Hills. From there, the Open will be played at Royal Birkdale, July 20th through the 23rd, and the PGA Championship back in its home August 10th through the 13th at Quail Hollow Club. Let's start with you, Rosie, the 117th U.S. Open at Erin Hills.
Brand new golf course. People don't know what to expect. Jim Reinhart, a friend of mine, I talked to him. He's the general chairman. He's also former rules chairman of the USGA. And the last thing he wants, and the owner up there, Andrew Ziegler, wants, is the type of controversy involving the greens that we saw in the last 2 Opens. Chambers Bay, obviously, with the poor conditions of those greens. And then you have last week when many say the greens were too good in the sense that they were rolled and rolling 15 in a stimp. And that's the reason why Dustin's ball rolled. First of all, they're going to have bent grass up there, so that should be perfect. Secondly, they're going to close down a golf course October 3rd, not play on it until the U.S. Open. So pristine conditions. Thirdly, according to Reinhart, you won't see the twists and turns of the greens that you saw at Chambers Bay, nor will you see the slopes that you saw at Oakmont. Relatively flat. Doesn't expect it to be a putting contest, though, by any means. But the golf course's teeth is really going to be in the layout. 8,000 yards, fescue fairways, so the balls roll fast. And who does it sound like it's going to favor? The defending champion, Dustin Johnson, which they're very excited about. Already talking about Media Day next May.
What doesn't favor Dustin Johnson right now? The way he's driving the golf ball. Trip, the PGA Championship goes to a course that we're all so familiar with at Quail Hollow, but it gets now its first major.
Well, it does, and rightfully so. I mean, this venue is just really one of the top venues and one of the top tournaments on the PGA Tour. They will be going to a different spot in their spot in the schedule. But as far as the major goes, right after play at the Wells Fargo, they tore up basically the first 5 holes, or they redid them in a different way, not really affecting the 3rd or 4th hole, but the 1st, the 2nd, you're going to play from the 1st tee down to the 2nd green, which was a par 3, and that's going to be over a 500-yard opening hole. And then the 5th hole, which was a par 5, a dogleg left, which a lot of the players didn't like that tee shot. Well, they've turned that into 2 holes, a par 3 and a par 4. And I was talking to Johnson Wagner. He said he could not believe the change. It's like it's been there the whole time. And he was questioning the change in May when they played the tournament at Wells Fargo at Memorial. Well, he wasn't questioning anymore. He said this is the right thing to do.
And what's interesting about that, because you have a PGA Tour event every year there, you have a lot of history. So you can start to talk about guys that play there. Phil Mickelson comes to mind, plays such great golf, a top 10 machine at Quail Hollow. But with the changes, you just wonder how that might impact them.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think it's going to change too much. I really don't, because the meat of the golf course is still there after you play the 5th hole, and those changes have already been done over the years. So it's going to be a fantastic time. It's going to be hot. It's Charlotte, North Carolina. tournament in August. It's definitely going to be hot, but so will the golfers, and it's going to be a great PGA.
What do you say we move on to the playoffs?
The playoffs.
Playoffs?
Good idea.
2017 FedEx Cup playoffs. They start with Northern Trust. That's right, formerly the Barclays. The tournament would be held at Glen Oaks Golf Club in New York for the very first time. The Deutsche Bank returns to TPC Boston for the 14th consecutive year, along with its traditional Monday Labor Day finish. After a week off, the playoffs resume at the BMW Championship, held once again at Conway Farms. Jason Day won at Conway Farms in 2015 by 6 strokes, and the Tour Championship once again at Eastlake, where we will crown a FedEx Cup champion. That tournament set to begin on September 21st. Still to come here on Golf Central, Lydia Ko. She's just 19 years of age, but she already has 13 wins. What is the limit for Lydia? And more on Billy Hurley III, now a winner on the PGA Tour. His emotional story straight ahead on Golf Central.
Golf Central is brought to you by Titleist, the #1 ball at Quicken Loans National. Titleist, the #1 ball in golf. Shipsticks, the largest golf bag shipping company in the world, simplifying the way you travel.